Hey everyone, it's Time Spiraled here. We are finally at the start of the month, which means patch notes. I figured now that the channel's up and running, it might be a good idea that on the first of every month, when we drop the patch notes here on MSEM, that I take the time to walk you through some of the main stuff that have changed. And at the same time, some community members felt that it would be interesting to get a look at the new sets that come in, depending on the month. We don't have new sets every single month. The Grand Prix results, the new champion promos and secret layers that have been added, and then I have a few little upkeep information that I definitely want to end the video on. So we're going to make it a short one. I know when things get a little too long, we tend to lose some stuff. So we're going to quickly go through top to bottom here. We're going to start with the new sets. So just going to cross that off so I know that we've checked it out. If you head over to the MSCM Instigator platform and you go to sets, you'll notice that we've got two new ones. We've got End of Wollensee by Purple Murasaki, and we've got Toll Midnight by myself, Time Spiraled. Obviously, big congrats to both those designers, though it feels a little odd to be congratulating myself. We had a really stacked list of sets this time around. I would have been excited with like so many of the sets getting in. And I think it's kind of funny that once again, we call it kind of like the little accidental blocks. Toll Midnight and End of Wollensee are all about a plain ending. So if you're a big fan of like, that kind of mood, you're in luck. They also share some, I won't say mechanics because they don't share specific mechanics, but they share sort of like mechanical themes. If you haven't had a chance to go through my videos, End of Wollensee already has a review video up on the channel. You'll notice that Fleeting is very similar to Toll Midnight's Evoke. So we haven't talked about Toll Midnight yet, but I'm saving that for a little bit of a longer video because as the designer, I have a lot more to say about what went into making that set. But I highly recommend you go and check it out. All these cards are already legal for play in MSCM's league and will be legal for the Grand Prix coming up in just a week. So if these are the sets that you haven't had a chance to look into yet, I really recommend that you do. They are really fun. There's a lot of cool stuff being tried right now, and hopefully we can catch some league videos for you leading up to the Grand Prix. All right, so with that said, we're going to get into the meat of today, which is the patch notes. I'm just going to open back up our Instigator here. We're going to go card by card. As always, if you want a full patch notes, I highly recommend that you go to the MSEM Discord. You go scroll down to the MSEM News channel. It is a read-only channel, and you're going to see that Cajun most of the time is the one to post the patch notes. So you'll have all the information that I'm going to be saying here today already there, but I figure sometimes it's nice to have some visuals to go along with it. All right, major changes. Enter the Battlefield has been errated, so everything should just be enters at this point. And we've already pre-applied the enchantment Nyx frame to all sets. It is possible that a few errors have slipped in. If that's the case, please let us know so we can fix that as promptly as possible. But enchantments should now be pretty and sparkly, which is why, absolutely thousands of images will look new. All right, let's get into some of the card changes. First up, we've got Fidelity of the Pure. Let's go get the original art so we can see what it looked like. And a neat little thing you'll notice on Instigator down here is we have the change notes. So you can always tell what the card was before. So it used to have a revive for only 1 and a white, and it was a leaves the battlefield rather than dies. Now that it's switched to a dies and the revive is slightly more expensive, it'll be a little less sticky. There were some sets that were able to really leverage the leaves the battlefield part rather than the dies, and things were getting a little nuts out there. So no longer going to be able to crack it for one body, then a second, then a third, then a fourth quite as cheaply. I expect that with the two changes, Fidelity of the Pure is likely to drop off quite a bit, but I could be wrong. Maybe people just like quadruple bodying. Yeah, something to keep in mind here. Moving on to the next card, we've actually got a really interesting change here. So we have a card called Fire Bloom now in the format. It used to be a totally different card. It used to be called Fires of Sation, which was a 2 and a red instant that dealt 2 damage to any target and drew a card. And it registered like absolutely 0 play in the entirety of its existence. We were looking at the format at certain effects that we did not have, and we didn't really have any can't be countered removal to combat not necessarily counter spells, but to combat especially like ward and things like that. So we looked through the format and we found 2 cards that you're going to hear about today to get a little change. And because we were changing this card to be a can't be countered Thunderwave, which is a card that just has the 3 damage text, we figured that maybe Fires of Station was not a very reprintable name. So Fire Bloom won out. So maybe in the future we're going to see some promos or some reprints of this card. I expect this card to see some sideboard play. It's a pretty good piece of removal. 3 damage for 1 to a creature or planeswalker, and it can't be countered. So, yeah. Oddly enough, this might be one of the nicer additions to the format, even though it technically already existed. Moving on, Flenser's Lieutenant. Activated ability used to be black. Tap, put a stun counter on it, it gains indestructible, and now it's been replaced with a double black, return it from your graveyard to your hand, and it keeps its whenever you cast a black spell, put a counter on Flenser's Lieutenant. So, little change there. I always love the art on this card. Absolutely fantastic. So, small change there. Moving on, we've got Flesh Scale Serpent. Now, we've seen this card in the format for quite a bit. It used to be that it would trigger once whenever an opponent drew 1 or more cards, instead of triggering on each card. I mean, sorry, it's the opposite. It used to trigger on each card. Now it triggers once when they draw 1 or more cards. So it changed from... oh, and of course, now I'm mixing up. Sorry. This was the change that it originally had like a year ago. I'm sorry. Today's change was just a wording fix. It changed from a trigger to a replacement. Getting mixed up with the previous changes. It's nice that it tracks changes that far, but I should definitely, be looking at the 2024 change and not the 2023 change. So it now reads, if an opponent would draw 1 or more cards except for their first one they draw, instead they draw those cards, then they may pay 1. If they don't pay, they get a poison counter and you draw a card. So small change there, mostly for functionality. We're going to get into a slightly bigger change here. We've got Herald of Oblivion, which was starting to creep up in play rate. It used to be a 1 mana 14/14 flyer that would enter with X -1/-1 counters on it, where X is your life total. Now it's a 2 mana. There's a lot of 1 mana, I would say, synergistic effects. Things like Butterfly Rebellion and Egg. But now that it's 2 mana, it kind of dodges those things, which should reduce its play rate. Of course, some people are realizing that you can now play it with some other cards that care about mana too, so maybe the card is going to still see some play, but it will see different play, that's for sure. So, let's go for Hunter's Mark is next. This is a really simple change. It used to be a ley line. It used to have put into play if it was your opening hand. Now it no longer says that. You're going to see there's a few more hits to the Curse deck. A few multiple hits, but some pretty relevant hits altogether. So, Hunter's Mark loses a little bit of its bite. Speaking of losing a little bit of bite, we have Intrepid. The boat has had many, many changes, and these are only some of the changes, by the way. This card has seen so many back and forths. The change is really simple this time around. It used to be a 4/4 flyer for 3 that you could turn into an artifact, a vehicle, animate it. Now it's a 3/3. The clock is a little slower, and it's more susceptible to removal. I think this puts the boat in a pretty good position. I expect it probably will still see play. But now it's going to be slightly easier to removal. The baseline is still perfectly fine. Casimir's Inquisition is now has Enchant Player. I believe it used to just enchant an opponent, but curses usually default to Enchant Player, so that's been changed. Going on, we have Middleware. This was a really good curse. It used to cost 1, now it costs 2. The card's fantastic. Whenever it or another curse becomes attached to Enchanted Player, exile the top card of that player's library face down for as long as that card remains exiled. You may look at it, you may play it, and mana of any type can be spent to cast it. So it used to be really good as a 1-drop that would get you a lot of card advantage. Now it's a 2-drop. So now it's a little more balanced in that regard. Nexus of Possibilities also moves up to 2 mana. Used to be 1 mana, so that's just a small change. Not much else to say there. We didn't go after any of the other effects, but costing 2 as a baseline rather than 1 cleans up some of the issues that we had with how good it was. Political Opportunist has had a small change. It used to be a 2/1 and would target a player. They would have to shuffle the cards from their hand into their library and draw that many cards. Well, now it's you may shuffle the cards from your hand into your library. So that not necessarily kills, but it definitely changes some of the decks that were relying on this kind of whenever an opponent draws X number of cards, do things. You can't do it now for 2 mana. But now it's a 3/1, and yeah. I expect it's not going to fall into any play anytime soon, but at least for the limited, the cards had a little bit of a boost as a thank you for your time and service, right? Plunge Through the Heart is the other card. If a player has lost life this turn, it gains flash and no longer can be countered, and it destroys a tapped creature for 2. So this is the other card that we added the can't be countered. Time will tell if this one sees play. The fact that it's a white-black hybrid makes it quite flexible to go into certain decks. Players tend to lose life all the time incidentally through fetches and you attacking and removal. So something to keep in mind. There are now 2 of these cards that have the can't be countered somewhere on them. Ultin Surveyor has had a change before, but now it's got another change. We removed the +1/+1 counter on target creature mode, and the nuking the graveyard is instead shuffle 4 cards. Which is really interesting because I think some people are thinking of using the shuffle 4 cards now for other reasons. But now that we're down to 3 modes and it doesn't have the counter mode, we'll see. I think this card should still see play. It is a fantastically flexible sideboard piece, and honestly, you can mainboard it half the time. It's got life, it's got artifact enchantment removal, it's got shuffle, it's got a lot of stuff you can do. And the drawback of, you know, they get a servo for each mode you chose. Obviously, the 1 mode is pretty decent because your 1/3 lines up really well into their 1/1s. I also love the art. I think this is just the whole package. And, you know, Secret Lair drop version we're about to talk in just a second. So it looks fantastic. Sorrow Slayer is a small change. It can only now be activated once each turn. The remove a +1/+1 counter mode. I believe this is just because of a in-set limited infinite, and I believe Cajun just wanted to patch that out. So it no longer does that thing. Tally's Council used to be 4 mana and added black, red, green to your mana pool. Now it's 5 mana. You search your library for a card and add 3 mana in any combination of colors. And you still has the 1 discard, add 1 mana of any color. Now, it does put the fact that now it's at 5 mana and not 4 is quite of a big a difference. But I think some people are still figuring out some really sick combo lines. I don't expect this card to, you know, go away too soon. You might see this card still lying around. I also totally spelled it wrong. It's not Thales, it's Tally's Council. Our last big change is working together. It used to be... it's if you would draw 1 or more cards, you may have each player draw an additional card, because now it applies if you would draw 1 or more rather than just a card. There's a lot of little things. So if you go in the MSEM news, we talk about a little more. It means that, you know, if you draw N, you can double a single draw rather than up to N. But it fixes some of the problems that the card had. So, yep, still a fantastically lovely card. I'm going to be interested to see if people still run it just for the, you know, cost reducer and the draw. So... it does have each player draw an additional card, so you got to be mindful of that. But, yep, that's it. Other things that have happened, we've lost 2 sets called Maya's Divinities and Ophorio Sagas. They used to be some, like, promotional sets somewhere down here. Now they've just become Secret Lairs. So they are respectfully Secret Lair 128, 139, 140. We're going to see them in just a second. We have some rules update on the fleeting mechanic from End of Wolensea and some specific card notes for Sire of the Shapeless from Toll Midnight and Capac's Envoy from Road to Karamaku. So do go look in MSCM News to keep an eye on those. There might be things that I've missed. Definitely neat little things to check out. So with that said, we have now gone through our patch notes, so we're going to just take a dip into the last Grand Prix results before moving on to anything else. So if you had a chance to catch my finals video, we had a mirror finals. Decks were bringing out this really lovely heart attack deck, and it went the whole hog, and it was even really cool. It was a 2-1 final. It's the same that game 3 pretty much was a I didn't draw the lands I needed, but it would have been really nice to see a full game 3, but both players played fantastic, and it was really nice to see. It would take a really long time to go through the entire bracket, but I do want to point out at least the top 8, the decks that made it all the way to the top X. I can no longer go into the actual tournament results because we're past it, but I do want to take the time just to click on each of the decks that we'll see. So Splash Cat and Test, we already saw they were our 2 heart attack players. Nyx managed to go up all the way here to the semifinals on sort of a Sidraxis Trepanator, Egg of Avarice, Herald of Oblivion build. I believe there was more than one player piloting it. In that deck, Sidraxis got hit last month, Fidelity got hit this month, we hit Herald of Oblivion this month, and I think that's the big hits. So the deck has definitely changed. I don't think we're going to be seeing it anymore in the sense of Herald of Oblivion with Egg of Avarice, seeing as Egg of Avarice can no longer tutor Herald of Oblivion because it costs 1. So one thing to keep in mind is because the images are pulled from Instigator, it already updates the change, which is why it's important to check to make sure if changes were applied, right? Because you don't want to accidentally grab a list and then realize it no longer works. There's still a shell here that I really like. The 1 mana and Fidelity is still at 1 mana. You have a lot of bodies, you have Egg, but you don't have your big Haymaker. Sometimes I know Herald could get sided out, from what I understand, so there's definitely other things you could do as a sort of hyper sticky creatures, low to the curve, get the ones you want. I'm assuming we're going to still see some of these pieces lying around, so it's probably not entirely gone. Caillou made it all the way up here to quarterfinals. I believe Caillou was on, let me just check real quick. Okay, so we're on Nexus of Possibilities, we're on Intrepid, we've got Mastery of the Veil. So it looks like it's not Curse, but it is, yeah, okay, so it's, let me just see, okay, there it is. So there's a heart, yeah, it looks like one of the heart attack type decks. Just a very different build, which is very interesting. I actually quite like this one. This is like Jund Heart Attack. Tally's Council is really cool back when it was 4 mana. You have a lot of things like ramp like Tent to the Groves, Hand Attack. It's a good mix here. Intrepid to go fetch things out. Nexus, you know, can get you from 6 all the way to, you know, huge amounts of mana. A lot of cool stuff in this deck here. And he got pretty far. Got all the way to the quarterfinals. So we had a lot of Heart Attack in the top. That's really nice to see. Truk here had Tron. All right, so this was Tron. It's funny how often we still see things like Gate of Realms and Intrepid just in decks. So it runs a lot of the lands like, let me find it real quick, Jade Temple, Center of Culture. I believe it runs Kelithros's Workshop. So a lot of the lands that tap for more than 1. It's got enchantment lands. So, you know, it's got all the things you would expect from a Tron deck here in the format. We've got things like Observer of Aeons, which is a big one. I hadn't even realized we were running 4 Masterwork Archivists. Welcome to the format, friend. And you might notice that it's a really big deck. Well, that's because it runs Unrivaled Fireweaver, so it can pull cards like Conquer Psyche, Bloodstained Calamity, a lot of cards here in the sideboard that can be grabbed. So very cool. Love to see so many of these artifacts see play. There's a few that, like Dimensional Reshaper, that you don't see very often. It's got the Imperial Silk. This is really cool. I'm actually really sad that I didn't get a chance to catch any of these matches. So I don't think we hit any card in it. Let me check real quick. No. Egg, but it wasn't with any of the cards that we hit. Yeah, okay, so we hit Intrepid. It's now a 3/3. I think that's still fine. Yeah, I mean, this could be a deck to still keep an eye. Like, it got pretty far. We've got 2 more players here. We've got Egg, who was on Dragons, which is really, really cool to see a Dragon type of deck make it all the way here. And it's an aggressive Dragon deck, which is really interesting, because you've got low to the curve cards like Dragon Soul, Dragon's Breath, the Marcus Davenport, who can put on a lot of pressure early, and then it curves pretty quickly into some of our 4 and 5 drop dragons with haste. And it can do a lot of damage here. We got Scorch, we got Flint Study, which, you know, just free casts dragons. Prince of Stars gives Cascade for dragons. Miyoga can turn into a dragon. There's a lot of stuff here to like. So I'm very happy to see this deck go all the way to quarters. And I believe we didn't touch a single card in this deck. So if this is the kind of deck that you like, well, we're at like 2 pretty solid typal decks between dragons and merfolk. Time will tell if we see more of this deck, or if it was like kind of like a one and done. And Toast was on, I believe, Curses. So this saw a lot of hits. So you're going to notice that Hunter's Mark has been changed. Middleware has been changed. So that probably makes a bit of a difference. This no longer having Leyline and this costing 2. But the rest is still there. There's probably still a lot to work with. The mana's pretty flexible. We have a lot of cards that can add mana of any color for enchantments. So little things like that to keep in mind. So that's kind of like the briefing. As we saw, you know, Splash had the buy, went up, took it for against Nyx, and then that's how we got to our finals. And over here, Test won and took Egg out. So that was our kind of like our GPG recap. Of course, you can click on the deck list and browse every single deck that saw play. If there's any cards in it, obviously, that have seen a change, you can either look at this video or the MSEM news. But that should give you kind of an idea of what kind of cards did well. I mean, there's some cards that got up here all the way to the round 4 and were still in the top brackets and stuff. So there's things to keep an eye on. All right, that was our Grand Prix G. Let's go to the MSEM champions here. I'm just going to close these tabs as we go so I don't accidentally go back to them. We've got 3 cards to look at. We've got the Beyond the Black Wall and ETF League season card that goes to Ricky Rister here. Picked Chronicles of the Kitsune. So we have a really cool new frame mock-up because originally the card looks like this. So it uses the gallery tech. Now we have a nice little horizontal one to fit with the frame. So Chronicles of the Kitsune, congrats to Ricky for taking this season by storm. And then we have our 2 promos, both of them from the same player. One of them is our season champion for Grand Prix, and the other one was for winning the Grand Prix itself. You might notice if you look over here, GPF was also won by Test, which tends to kind of lead into a season champion when you can win 2 Grand Prix back-to-back. So Test is doing absolutely fire. And I believe this was actually pretty much a similar deck. I think they were both on sort of like these big mana with Simul kind of plays. So super lovely re-art here for the MSEM champion. Simul was a really big mainstay of the deck. And then Biohazard was the second pick. So we didn't really see Test cast this card, I believe, but it was in the deck. I think Splash Cat landed in one of the matches. That I have up on the channel. So congrats to our GP and league winners. If getting your name up on a little gold promo is the kind of thing that entices you, you just got to play in the seasons either for league, GP, or, you know, win a GP gets you a gold one right off the bat. So you can see we're already at quite a few cards here. We're at 139 champion promos here. So awesome. Let's move on to the promos and secret layers. We're going to start here. So we've got our first layer. I believe they do say the name of the layer if I go in and check. I think this one is a monument to my sins. A little hard to read here on the Mark Erskine. So Pipsqueak has a few cards that are banned in the format. 11th Hour Breakthrough, Embrace Madness, Instant of Brilliance, Reinvent, and Thunder Road was recently banned. So it's a funny little layer where all 5 of these cards are banned. They're not all banned in MSCDH, so if you want to, you know, go play them in a different format, you can. But yeah, it's a nice little tribute to, you know, sometimes we make cards and sometimes they end up too strong. That's just kind of how it is. Moving on to the second layer here, we've got Snap Back. So last month we had Oh Snap, which was art from Marvel Snap, applied to some of our cards. And we had Giant Poet here saying, hey, that's a really cool idea. Let's do another one. So right off the bat, we got Snap Back got added. So we've got the full suite of cards. I absolutely love Arcasis's double-sided here. Jack, Minister of Zealots, Ultan Surveyor, Charming Marauder, and Fiery Truthseeker all get fantastic art. If you have any questions about what are the characters depicted, you can definitely ask Gynoid in chat. I'm sure she'd be happy to talk about it. Moving down, we have Nature Incarnate. So this was a lair using art from... It's funny that not all of them are showing up here, but I will click on the individual layers to show them all to you. So this was a layer that uses art from a board game. So we're now at 4 layers, I believe, that use board game art. This one is using art from Spirit Island. So we've got Bounty of the Gardens, Civilization's Cost with its first re-art. I had actually considered doing a re-art, but I did a different layer this month. So it's nice to see it get another art. Descend on the Helpless Cormoran, Ninhirseer's March, and God of Creation, which is why there's, you know, DFCs there. Rot, Stand Unassailable, Storm Surge, Sunken Ambitions, and Tranquil Repose. Some really nice arts for some of these. I'm a big fan. Storm Surge is pretty... Stand Unassailable is really nice. Rot's actually really good. Bounty of the Gardens as well is fantastic. I mean, it's all good. I'm really happy with this layer. I think it looks fantastic. Moving back, what else we got? We have... I believe this is the former Ophorio sagas and stuff. Yeah, so, you know, sagas and things. It's weird that it shows up here, though. I'll have to check with Cajun. But now it's a lair. So they use a really lovely scroll frame. I believe Cajun made it. Cajun can definitely correct me if that's incorrect. But uses a lovely little scroll lair. Scroll frame, pardon. And then I believe if we go down, there's the second set, which is the other little grouping here. We got a lot of these cool ones, you know. These are some of these cards that we see. It's nice to see. Like Planar Reflection is always cool. Neural Contagion is nice. If Memory Serves is really cool. I believe there was another one, but maybe it's further down. So we'll keep an eye on it. Moving in here, we have our Silver promos. Now, silver promos are handed out for reaching a top X in a Grand Prix. So it was very top heavy as a reward. It was, do you win the Grand Prix? If yes, you get a promo. Otherwise, you got nothing. So we moved to if you got into the top X at least once in a season, you got a promo. So you are a, top X for that season. And I believe we did the exact same thing for our league leaders. So if you were in a certain amount of league leaders, you could also get a promo for that. So we're just going to run them quickly through from top to bottom. We've got Overactive Imagination. It's funny because it's a Cajun card, but also Cajun earned it. Terraformer's Globe, Styles earned it. Kinjiru Assailant, Neon Blue. This one looks so good in the silver frame. A lot of these cards do. Apex's Oath by Hervor. Anran's Radical, Nyx. Ricky Risser picked up a Chaos module. Retire. Hersey picked it up. Shadowbinder Tuca, Silver Parabellum. This is such a gorgeous art choice as well. Tally's Council, Caillou. We've got Test picking up Total Surveillance. Splash Cat picking up Trauma Spike. A Little Blank picking up Monument to the Fallen Man. Trek picking up Center of Culture. So a lot of these you'll be like, hey, these were cards we were just looking at in the Grand Prix. Yeah, exactly. That's how it happens. Goblin Warbuggy picked up Cresting Bay. Gallo picked up Jade Temple. Angener picked up Against the Waves. Hervor picked up Deathless Siege. So we're down to the league leaders now, so which is why you might see some names come up a second time. So Against the Waves, Deathless Siege. Hersey picked up Neon Claw Knight. This card doesn't do it justice because there are 3 associated tokens that are just out of this world jaw-dropping. So I definitely recommend if you're playing Neon Claw Knight, you might want to check out the tokens and the art version of this one. So Hersey picked that one up. Caillou, The Tale of Kings. We've got Toast on Tal Locust Sentry. Trek picks up a Blackwall's Edge. And I believe that brings us to the end. I may have mixed the layer. Let me just check real quick. We've got these ones, which was the Euphoria ones. I thought that we also had the Maya's Divinities. Oh, maybe that was already corrected. That was layer 128. So that's fine. That would have been a previous one then. So yeah, that kind of wraps up our little layers here. Which means that we're pretty much done the patch notes. I'm just going to make a few comments. We've got GPH, Hyderabad coming up. September 7th is when it starts. So your deck lists are due by that September 7th at 10 p.m. Eastern. All the information is in the GP channel over here on MSCM's Discord. If ever you have questions about deck building or you don't know what to do, you can always check out deck lists. You can practice in League, or you can ask around in deck building. People will be happy to help out. Speaking of, the new League and Grand Prix season have already started, so people are already playing. I believe I woke up and saw that there were already... How many matches are we at now? We're already at 10 matches played since, midnight, so everything there is doing fine. It's a new Grand Prix season. It's a new League season, so if you get in early now, you have a shot at, the prize, right? Saturday drafts are still firing. I believe yesterday it was OTH Over the Horizon, and there's going to be a few sets being picked to be played on this first week, and I believe the goal is to have an End of Wallency and to have a Till Midnight draft sometime this month to get a feel for the formats. So that wraps up my September notes. I will say we have a sister format called Revolution Custom Standard. They're preparing some pretty cool stuff for the new their own GP. We've got some cool art assets being made, and we have a new set also adding into the format there. We've got Cliques of Nylin has joined the format. So I might do a video, but I might also just let somebody else kind of do a video on Revolution, and then I might try and do maybe a match or two throughout the month. I think it's really nice to give a shout out to other custom format initiatives because, the more custom Magic you play, the better. Everyone wins. So on that note, hopefully we'll see each other soon. I'm really hoping to catch some League matches at least, a few times a week. And then when Grand Prix starts, I really want to get at least one match per 3 days just to have one for every round leading up to the finals. So thanks again for sticking with us. Hopefully this has given you a little look into what we've got cooking here, and hopefully we see you on the format. So take care.